What's up, everyone?
Hey guys.
Welcome back to
Wait,
the
I thought you were going to
podcast.
finish
A
that
little
thought.
AM session.
Yep. Early morning rain. Early morning recording. Everyone's happy to be here.
Everybody's loving life right now.
Especially Dan.
Dan,
Really, really excited to be here.
he must be because
Dan
he's
is
still
just
sound
like
asleep.
cozy in bed. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I was going to be up. If I
Dude, I don't
didn't
know
wake up,
why
like
or
I
how
said,
you do that to yourself.
it's fucking awful.
Yeah, what's going on
I
here?
went to bed at 2, I think. I was up at like 7:30. We could have started an hour ago.
Yeah, I woke up at 6, so
Yeah,
Same
no,
thing
I
an
woke
hour
up at 8:30 to an
for
alarm
two.
that was trying to turn off.
Well, I'm glad you guys are here, man. I let's see how the AM format goes. I feel like it might not be my best performance as I'm on five
It's
hours of
not going to
sleep.
be mine. I need some coffee so bad.
But it also doesn't help that we're speaking about a band that I don't really know much by. Like that's what I was saying. Like I definitely didn't nominate this one because I mean, yes, I know Supertramp. Yes, I knew for what is the Take the Long Way Home and maybe one of the other songs on here. Um, but definitely not a band that I've studied like some of these other ones coming into it. But I did listen to this a good like at least 6 times, which is a higher number for my standards.
Yeah.
I've done some of these on one listen, so um, but
given through half
there's
the
not. I just probably
songs.
not just been yeah, not just been listening to it for like 5 times a day for the last 3 weeks. So I understand why he was looking to get past this album, but I don't know. I think Dan, Jack, and Inky all probably know more about this band than I do.
You got to enable screen sharing, Nigel.
Oh yeah.
Rookie.
Well, I don't have anything
Fucking
pulled
shit
up.
host.
Whose
No,
records? Let me pull that
if
in.
you allow it for me, I can share.
Oh, okay.
I don't know much about the band. I don't know if
Real.
this is a great place to start, but just some personal background. I know Jack and I have talked about this album a few times together. Before we had selected it, not in depth, but we're definitely both big fans. And my initial exposure to Supertramp was actually through vinyl, and I had the album before this one, even in the quietest moments, and I listened to that all the way through, and that was kind of the first time not hearing these songs on the radio, and I was like, these guys are pretty good. And eventually got Breakfast in America. I was like, whoa, that's even better.
Yeah, I was
Hmm.
pleasantly surprised. I allowed sharing, by
Nice.
the way, Inky, so you can.
Okay, let's do it. Yep, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's not working for
Nigel,
me.
you go on the
Oh
You can
my
do it if you
goodness.
the
I
want.
little
literally.
arrow on share screen, top right arrow, and you'll have multiple presenters.
Okay. Yeah, I did it for whiteboards. Is it working now?
Yeah, we're not using whiteboards.
It
Yeah,
is.
I don't know what that is. So, oh, amazing, beautiful, good job, Inky.
Six
Is
Yeah.
that
eighteen
okay?
a.m. Jesus.
I mean, I
Yeah,
did a
that's
little
rough.
little research on the
Go for it.
on the not necessarily just this album, but just the composition of the band. So they have two. If you could scroll down, they have two lead singers, which you can hear pretty clearly in the album. It's Roger like Hodgson and uh keep scrolling. Oh yeah, Rick Davies. Yeah. And you can hear the vocal styles pretty starkly different. Um
Hmm.
and they're also the two songwriters. They write most of the music separately. So they have two songwriters for the band essentially. Two lead vocalists. I also read that they for their guitarist position, they what do you call it? Audition. They auditioned like 75 guitarists before they picked one. And then they picked one, and then the next day, I think it was Richard Palmer. The next day audition, and they're like, "All right, actually, you're going to be the guitarist," and the guy they picked the previous day became the bassist. So, kind of just crazy the idea of auditioning 75 people to fill a slot. I probably would have settled at like 10 or something like that, but hey, these guys were definitely perfectionists. You can hear it. You can hear it in the album for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, they won the Grammy for like best engineered album, best like non-classical and recording engineered album. It's
Yeah,
pretty awesome. And unrelated, but best album package, which I mean, it's a great cover. Everyone loves this cover. It's a classic, kind of funny,
iconic.
and it's like it's a fun cover. And that whole thing with this album is like they wanted it to be a fun album with fun songs. I'm like, I've never heard a band say that or like use that as like creative direction for an album. And I kind of love that. It's just like supposed to be fun. And there's a ton of references to the United States and like American culture throughout the album. And everyone kind of thought this is supposed to be just like about that and like a riff on American culture. When they've commented saying like, yeah, it's purely coincidental, like the thousands of references we have making fun of American culture. It doesn't have to do with that at all, which is I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I think originally the album was supposed to be I think it was supposed to be like a relationship album or something like that. You can kind of hear that in some of the songs. Decent number of the songs are about um girls and relationships and stuff like that. But yeah, they definitely switched to a more playful vibe. I mean, definitely some of the songs are um highlight or critiques on American culture, but yeah, I don't think that was the purpose of the album. It definitely just has a fun. I mean, it's just awesome. Just has a fun sound to it. It's, pretty upbeat. Even the slower songs are, a more positive, relaxed vibe than something like Sullen. Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to get into it whenever you guys are.
Yeah, I don't know much about honestly. Like I just like their music. I don't know much about them either.
Same, yeah. That's where I'm at with them.
But I know they're super famous. I mean, you know, they're referencing pop culture all the time.
Yeah.
One of those big power groups out of the UK in the 70s. And yeah, super famous.
Yeah, this was their best album
Yep.
too. I think their other huge album was Crime of the Century or something like that. Yeah, I don't know a ton by them either. One song I know off, I think it was their previous album, was Love
Give
a
a little
Little
bit.
Bit. Yeah, Give a Little Bit. Yeah. I think I know
Yeah,
more
that's good.
songs by them, but that's another, big song.
Yeah. Yeah, even The Quietest Moment's a great album. Crime of the Century, great album. Crisis What Crisis is a pretty solid album too. I have all four of those on vinyl. I don't know. I didn't know I had them until I went to look for this to play it for this
Really
and found all four. I'm like, this is awesome. Listen to
sweet.
Crisis What Crisis, which I'd never listened to. I just had it and it's awesome. So I recommend listening to that if you like this.
This is also the third best-selling prog rock album of all time, only behind uh Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall. So
That's some pretty good company. It's such a different album.
yeah, it's so funny because like the prog rock that we covered is this. I mean, this isn't exclusively prog rock, but is Supertramp, Pink Floyd, and Rush, and they sound completely different. I don't even understand the genre. Like,
Yeah.
I guess it
Yeah,
just
we've had
means
this
like
conversation before.
it's just like, oh, it's rock that's kind of arty and has weird stuff going on. That's the genre. Very odd.
Yeah, I think you
Super
just
odd.
said it perfectly.
Yeah, also like experimentalism is something we talked about before, and probably just like it's almost like how pop is like a umbrella generic term. I feel like prog rock is almost like an umbrella term, about the opposite of it, where it's like not completely cliche and conventional chord progressions and song structures, especially. Um, but I would say, I mean, there's way weirder and zanier prog rock than Supertramp.
Hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, I would liken this more to pop rock than prog rock personally, but
Mhm.
I'm not a critic, so
I am.
my opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. But that's why we're here, to give the opinions
So
that don't matter.
exactly
Because
for our
all of
six
our opinions
viewers.
don't matter.
Yeah.
All
Uh,
right,
let's get
let's
into it.
start.
I don't want to start because I have a lot to say.
I don't want to start because my internet connection seems super shaky, and I'm still trying to feel it out right now.
Uh-oh.
So
Just leaves you and me, Jack.
I don't want to start because I don't think I have the mental capacity to like form my opinions and then to take other people's opinions. So, Inky,
All
it sounds
right.
like you're starting.
Well, that was
Thank
my
you.
plan. So hopefully Dan just joins in the next minute or so. But all right, fine. Let's see. I was reading through this. I like this quote from the critical reception, and I definitely agree with it. Textbook perfect album of post. Yeah, this one here, post Beatles keyboard centered English art rock. Skip all
Beatles, the
this. Not
Beatles.
going to read the whole thing. But anyway, whoever it was, Stephen Holden. I agree with him. Super super tight album. I think it's going to be a good discussion. I wish we had more time, more not 9 a.m. energy, but yeah, interested to see where people land. And for me, I don't think it requires like the most in-depth analysis. The singles are just some of the best, most beautiful works of art from this band. Definitely from the band, and maybe just late 70s and early 80s in general. Just this run right here, Logical Song, Goodbye Stranger, Breakfast in America, some of the best, one of the best, back to back to back
Yeah.
runs in classic rock. For Take the Long Way Home, that's my MVP. That's my favorite song off the album. And the past 2-3 weeks, whenever we were going through it, definitely reignited some memories of the first time hearing the song. I think overall it's really well constructed. It's this pretty grand sound. Almost want to use the word like orchestral, but I don't think that's quite right. The back and forth between
Quasi-symphonic. That's how Stephen Holden says it.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I like that a lot. The back and forth between the sax and the harmonica is obviously amazing. The really like tippity top S tier moment for me, which maybe is like a whole nother discussion too, is after the instrumental and there's that really euphoric piano walk up
I'm listening
and
to
it
it
turns
right
into
now.
that like
Wait,
does
where
your
is it, Nigel?
It's it's about 4 minutes into. Wait, which song are you talking about?
Take the Long Way Home?
Oh, okay. There's another one in Child of Vision that I'm listening to right now.
Anyway, it's right before the does it feel like your life has turned into a catastrophe? That line. And just the story of the whole song and like that piece, it just hits hard, really special. I compare it again, like whole other discussion to like a 10 years gone solo, or like the end of Morning Dew from Europe 72, and like a Sugary at Wrigley, all of these things, like the top of the top S tier moments.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my MVP. And then I think kind of my underrated song that I've been revisiting lately is Just Another Nervous Wreck. Not as popular, but just a feel good song. The electric piano throughout the entire album is great, but I especially liked it in this song, and it even has that like very very 70s esque guitar solo for Seamus. So
which
the
song?
album's got it all. Just Another Nervous Wreck.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so overall, I think that's kind of all I had without getting into it, the rating too much. I think it is like a really like spectacular, big poppy album, and the singles really do it for me. I think as a whole, it's really popular, sure, but in my mind, the band in itself is kind of underrated.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it is.
I think they're underrated in America, is my guess. Like I
Yeah,
feel like
maybe
they
they.
had extreme commercial success, like in the UK, probably.
Okay.
Like the two major markets for rock and roll. Like, and I think they're totally underrated in America.
Well, Seamus will let
Um,
us know when he heads over there.
yes, when he moves there.
Yep.
that was not exactly what I said. I said that if I
Word for word.
relocate, yeah,
Verbatim
if
When
quote.
I
I
relocate.
yeah.
Um,
Is that what you got, Inky?
That was it.
cool. I can follow.
All right.
Let me just turn it down a little bit. I'm listening. I like listening now, Nigel, when I remember headphones.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, where to start? I love this album. I have loved this album for a pretty long time. Mostly the hits. I before this show, I didn't really listen to albums through, except for like a select few that I loved. So I didn't listen to this through all the time. But I mean, my Spotify Wrapped always had "Take the Long Way Home" and like either "Breakfast in America" or "Goodbye Stranger" in like the top 10 songs of my year every the past like 3 or so years. Um, they're great songs. I mean, like "Take the Long Way Home," Inky, agree. Like that's definitely like one of my favorite songs of all time. It's in the top 20 of I think like the best songs ever. It is just so incredible. Just the whole progression. And then honestly, going into Lord Is It Mine? That's a song I didn't really appreciate before listening to this or listening for this. I think it's a fantastic song, just super dramatic and like amazing, just like crash sound. So I think the two songs that I didn't really appreciate before this, but now really, really love are Gone Hollywood and Lord Is It Mine. I think Gone Hollywood is a fantastic opener to this album. It kind of just comes in with a
Indeed.
bang and really just sets it up for success. And then going right into the logical song, and then Goodbye Stranger, and then Breakfast in America. I mean, I can only imagine getting this album like the day it came out on vinyl
Right.
back when it came out and just hearing this A side and thinking like it's like when we talk about like Zeppelin 4 when that came out and you're like, holy crap, this is
Mhm.
just like hit after hit after hit. And this album just like it doesn't disappoint throughout the entire thing. I think it's so tight and just hitting on all cylinders the entire time. And it's crazy. It's so well done. And I definitely have a new appreciation for the second, like the B side with Lord Isn't Mine, just another nervous wreck. Casual Conversations is great. And then Child of Vision, I need to listen to it a little bit more. I think it's a great song. I don't appreciate it as much as I probably should. As being like a 7 minute closer. It should be better in my mind. Also, I like how you have like super intense Breakfast in America, followed by a really like upbeat and like just a lot more casual of a song with "Oh Darling" to end out the first side. I think it's a really good like juxtaposition between the two, and then going right into "Take the Long Way Home" on to open the B side. Like that's just a great sandwich right there. Of going back and forth and like taking a break from the more like I don't know if I go as far as saying intense songs in the album, but less like happy go lucky. I know Darling's a pretty like happy go lucky song. Um, so yeah, I love this album. I think it's like one of one of the best encapsulations of like this time period and like what the best of the best were doing. And I think the review that Inky pulled up is like a pretty on point review, which is probably why it's featured here on the Wikipedia. But yeah, just like such a great album. Just like seems like the UK or London in like in the 70s, just like awesome. Wish I was there for when this came out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to go. Shame if you want to close us out.
I'm fine with that.
All right, so yeah, just to start off, great album. Not much negative to say about it. I think every single song on this album could be a single. Um, I think every single song on this album is good. As we mentioned before, it won 2 Grammys, best recording package or best album package or something like that, and best engineered non-classical piece. And the engineering's amazing on it. The recording's amazing on it. The other two that it was nominated for, I don't remember. One of them is Album of the Year, so it was nominated for Album of the Year in '79. I don't remember what the other one was. But just going down each song, Gone Hollywood, fantastic song, fantastic opener, logical song, just so catchy. Like a lot of these songs, a lot of the
So
songs written
awesome.
by Hodgson were actually written when he was a kid. So Logical Song was written when he was like a young kid in boarding school. So it's about his like transition from being like a carefree kid into being, a responsible, logical, dependable member of society, essentially. Breakfast in America was also written when he was a kid. I think it was written about visiting America, like wanting to visit America as like a teenager and like seeing what it's like, and going to California and stuff like that. They mention LA and Texas and stuff in that song. I think my favorite song in the album, I think, is Child of Vision. I love that song. I love most of the songs in this album. I think, as Jack mentioned earlier, Lord Is It Mine, fantastic song.
Mhm.
That might be right behind Child of Vision. At first I didn't like it. I listened through the album a couple times before I actually liked it, because the first, I don't know, minute or so is slower, and it's more not just acoustic but almost like a cappella. But then it just swells into this like grandiose,
Yeah.
like dramatic and passionate song, which is just amazing. And the way that
Mhm.
it evolves is just so good. Casual Conversations, I love like the jazzy kind of just like laid back vibe it has. I think on a lot of these albums he's playing a Wurlitzer, which is a type of um like electric keyboard, and there's a lot of
Yeah. I love that Wurlitzer on
yeah
this. They use it so much, and
yeah
it's a little. I feel like it sounds a little bit dated, but
mhm,
it makes like now, but it just made so much. It makes so much sense of this album, and it
yeah
has such a great sound.
yeah. It has
Some
this
of it reminded me of Brent. I don't know if you
Yeah,
got that track. Yeah.
maybe that's why I love this album so much.
Yeah.
there's a lot of wobble in the pitch, like tremolo in the pitch, so it kind of sounds like old timey and um almost out of tune, but I love the sound. I love the effect, and they use a lot of interesting instruments on this album. I glance at my notes real quick. Another Before I get into the instruments, another cool thing is they didn't use a click track on this album at all. Which, if you don't know what that is, it's something that keeps your time for you, right? You'll wear it in your headphones or something like that, and it'll make sure that your tempo is the same the entire time. But they do a lot of interesting tempo changes throughout the song, and slowdowns and speed ups, but they're all in sync, in time, and it sounds perfect. And it's different than, say, last week, when sometimes they were just out of time and not a good way. Yeah, I had to bring that up. Sorry, Seamus. Alice
There
in
you go.
Chains doesn't quite compare, but yeah, they were
Really
totally in
get going
sync.
before I speak. Probably not smart.
They were totally in sync, and not the group. But uh another cool thing that you will notice is like Hodgson's like falsetto. He gets this like really high, airy singing voice, which is such a great contrast with Davy's like lower, more earthy singing voice. That Inky actually brought up a decent uh amount earlier with like the call and response between the saxophone and harmonica. They do it a lot with their voices. And essentially, if you don't know what call and response is in music, essentially you'll have like a melody play, and then in another octave or another instrument or another voice have another melody play like after it, and it sounds like a conversation, like going back and forth, right? The best example, most obvious example of that would be like something, what's that song? I can do anything better than you can. No, you can't. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Right? Going back and forth between
Mhm.
the male vocal and the female vocal. They do that a lot in this album, not just with the vocals but with the instruments and stuff. And it's a pretty powerful technique. It carries you through the song. It makes it so it doesn't get boring. And for
Um,
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just before you get too far from it, that falsetto comment. If you want to hear like a great example of that, you go to like 250 in the logical song and play from there. Awesome. Maybe like 245 just to get the build up. I recommend.
Sweet.
Anyways.
Yeah, no, his falsetto is fantastic. And I mean, it reminds me a lot of um Rush too, with the falsetto
Hmm.
vocals, and that Rush has. um As for the instruments, like we already mentioned, the Wurlitzer's in there. I think on Goodbye Stranger. So on Goodbye Stranger, they're using a tuba, a trombone, the Wurlitzer, a modified piano. So if you don't know, a piano, it's a percussion instrument, and you press the key, a hammer hits a string. There's little felt hammers, but they're using I think it's called like a tack piano, and they put thumbtacks in the felt so that when it they put thumbtacks in the felt so that it's like this more, it kind of sounds like picking almost, but it's a piano. It's like it has a more percussive sound. So they're just, using all these experimental instruments. They're using, I had to look it up. It might be on there. It's called a calliope or something. And literally it's they release steam out of whistles, and that's what gives the pitch of the instrument. And they're using that on Goodbye Stranger, which is just wow. They're using all kinds of instruments. Awesome. They're just experimenting, playing around. The musicality of this album is incredible. Like, I'm going to get into it a little bit, but not too much. But they're jumping around between different keys a lot. Some of them are within the same scale, like, or within the same mode. So they might jump between like major and minor scales, right, in different keys. But they're also jumping between like major and Lydian, or major and Mixolydian, which are modifications of the major scale. And we're gonna have to, but it's just impressive musically, the chord complexity and the novelty. Like, they're not using typical chord progressions, they're not using typical melodies, and the bass is kind of under, I would say maybe underappreciated is not the right word, but it's there and you don't really notice it, but the bass is doing pretty interesting stuff too. It's not just playing along, and it adds a lot to the rhythmic element of the songs throughout the album. And Hodgson's like eighth note tap 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 on the keyboard also gives it like this rhythmic and poppy and excited feel that just carries a lot of the songs, like Logical Song, like Child of Vision, and I think what's the opener? Gone Hollywood. I think he's doing something similar in that one. So just fantastic. Seamus, you'd probably be glad to know they're using a lot of 12 string on this album. All the acoustic guitar on this album is 12 string, and they're actually using two for most of the time. They'll pan one left and one right. Sounds fantastic. You don't really notice it unless you're paying attention, but it just gives it this wide and grandiose, and I think you guys mentioned it, like a symphonic feel. Like, the album sounds big. That goes along with the mixing and the reverb. So this album took 10 months to make, which is kind of crazy. A lot of albums don't take anywhere near that long. It only took 1 month to record the major parts, like each of the instruments. And then Hodgson pretty much lived in the studio for 7 months.
Wow.
Like, he was staying in the studio, or he was working in the studio for like 16 hours a day, and then eventually bought an RV and just lived outside the studio for 7 months and just did layering and like background vocals and adjustments and mixing just to get the song to sound perfect, because they knew that they had something like worthwhile. And it definitely came out, because the vocals sound amazing. There's a lot of layering. You can't always tell because it's kind of subtle. That's kind of what overdubbing is. A lot of the time is just this broadening and thickening of the vocals, so it sounds like a more full sound for each vocal and each swell and each layer that's going on musically. But you can definitely tell that they put a crazy amount of time, because most albums do not take 10 months. Mixing itself,
yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Last week we listened to an album that took a week to record.
Yeah, no, you can hear the quality difference. Like, there's not a mistake on this album. Everything sounds like beyond perfect.
Yeah,
and the mixing, which I forget who it was done by, but the mixing itself, even after Hodgson did all that, the mixing by the actual engineer took a month on its own. Right, this is 10 songs. It was supposed to take a week. Like, it's just kind of crazy to see how much time and energy they put into this song. And they were working with, you know, limited equipment. This is 79. They had a tape machine. So they were working with tape. So it wasn't all digitalized. Parts of it were, I know the bass was recorded direct input. So that was kind of a weird thing to do at the time. Usually, you know, guitarists and bassists, you know, you hook up an amp, you hook up a mic so you get your tone, your sound, but they recorded the signal straight into the mixing board, and the bass sound you get is essentially the bass player whose name I'm blanking on, but it's the sound that the mixing engineer, you know, curated for the album, which I think is pretty cool. On top of that, there were 4 different final mixes for the entire album because they couldn't decide on which mix to use because each band member like wanted something different. That's probably why it also took so long to mix. But there were 4 different final mixes. I don't know whose favorite mix that we ended up with. I think it would be interesting to like hear the other mixes, but maybe you can find them somewhere online. I'm not sure. But yeah, this was a great album, great songwriting. Some of the best songwriting that we've reviewed so far, just in the arrangement and the builds and the lyrics. Don't really have a complaint. I think that's about all I got.
Nice. Thanks, Nige.
Yep.
Nigel,
you want to send it? I'm sorry. After this,
Yeah,
you wanna
yeah, I
send it in,
can.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know Hold the Line by Toto?
Yeah.
That I feel like that has a similar feeling to, at least in the intro, of Child of Vision.
Yeah, that
Made me
kind of
think of that.
Interesting. I
slower.
can see that.
Yeah.
Listening to Child of
Keys
Vision right
driven
now.
too.
If you didn't, I was going to tell you to check it out, but Seamus, prepare yourself. I'll send you a
Right.
link.
Cool. So,
Oh,
now
real
that I'm
quick.
up,
No, you're not up yet.
oh
No.
yeah, well,
I
Stop
just
talking.
wanted
all
to
right,
add
guys, I'll
real
see you later.
quick that the instrumentalism on this album was fantastic. I didn't really touch on that too much. Like, obviously they used different instruments, but they were killing it on the guitar. The drumming was fantastic. Like, you know, all these songs you could have just played through with pretty basic rhythms, but they did some pretty super interesting stuff, changing up the tempo. The guitar solos were fantastic. The piano and Wurlitzer solos were fantastic. The harmonica, every single time Take the Long Way Home came on and I was in my car, literally broke out my harmonica
Take
and
the
played
long way
along.
home.
That's awesome.
I mean, it was just so much fun. Like, I listened to it a couple times on the drive to Philly. And yeah, every time broke out the harmonica, just played along because it's just such a exciting and lively song. And yeah, just wanted to shout out the instrumentalism because it was great.
You're telling me you keep a harmonica in your car?
I do.
Who doesn't?
You don't, Nikki?
That
You
is-
don't
Never
keep
leave
a
the house
harmonica on the
without
boat?
That is so whack.
Nikki, you have a rice cooker in your trunk. How you're not one to talk.
Hey, it's a bag of rice. It's not a rice cooker.
Oh yeah, you
Much
have
more
You're
utilitarian.
splitting hairs here, man.
inedible rice in your trunk. Nice.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know if you can talk.
Every time I listen to Take the Long Way Home, I just break out the rice.
Just plug it in.
Chew it
Have a
on
good
hard
meal.
grains.
All right, Seamus.
All right. Now am I actually up?
Actually, wait, hold on. I have so much more to say.
So, I also like the album. I don't know if that's what you were expecting me to say.
Yeah, I knew you would.
Not really.
So I will say, I'm probably not as bullish on it as you guys are. Now, Nigel, as always, did a great job breaking down the production elements. Which, Nigel, before you hop back on the call, we were applauding you for that breakdown. It gives us a lot more credibility as none of us are speaking to any of those points. So those are pretty much objective measures, right? Which I think is probably, rightful to spend so much time on breaking down that stuff as you typically do. And also very interesting juxtaposition to do this right after we do Jar of Flies, which took a week to record. So, and especially for you, someone who's so tuned into and so focused on the production qualities. I mean, it's a great sounding album. So
Yeah.
again, I would say the objective qualities, I probably have to agree with you. Um, Going like just through my listening experience in Gone Hollywood. And by the way, coming into this album, I think I only knew Take the Long Way Home and Goodbye Stranger. Um, I've heard the Logical song before and maybe Breakfast in America. So when I say that I didn't know this band beforehand, like yes, I knew this band, yes, I knew these songs, but like I didn't really know the Logical song. Like it was like an oh, I've heard this before, but never something that I was like, yo, what's that song? Never something that I sought out, never something that I saved. Um, However, Take the Long Way Home is a very common radio song. I know Inky said that that was probably his standout on the album, which is interesting. I feel like a lot of us typically drift away from the radio songs when we, because it's just so easy to become jaded to them. But I thought that was a great song. I think that's very representative of the album as a whole. Probably why uh, it was so successful.
Which
So
song?
in Gone, Take a Long Way Home. Interesting that that's a B side. Um, because I'd probably say that that's my favorite song, but I do have one other one that I like a lot. But going through the album, Gone Hollywood, and I'm just like reading the notes I wrote as it was like it's like a stream of consciousness thing that I do on the first listen. So like initial impressions, falsetto is literally one of the first things I wrote about it, and I don't love that falsetto um vocal that they do throughout the album. Uh, but it is interesting because you mentioned Rush, and I definitely thought that was at times comparable to Geddy Lee in the way that it sounded. And
Yeah.
I don't hate Geddy Lee, his voice. Obviously, it's a bit decisive, but or divisive, I mean, um, but yeah, I mean, I like it. I mean, it suits who they are, I think, too. But again, also listening to right off the bat in Gone Hollywood, production quality seems really good. You hear a couple different instruments in that. You hear the sax breakdown over the piano, which I thought was really cool. Guitar tone towards the outro was I thought it was a really compelling tone, and I thought it was a good song. Logical song, again, not as bullish on this one. I thought that that main lyrical hook, like the when he's saying like lyrical, beautiful, oh magical. It's very theatrical. And I think
Hmm.
that there are parts of this album, that back and forth vocal part that you're talking about in like Child Division. Again, I feel like that's a very theatrical quality, something that you would see in a play. So immediately I'm out. I mean, no, but I mean, I don't know. I didn't care for that too much, but it suits the album and like I said, there's qualities of that throughout. I think Queen are another band that have that very what do they call it? Don't they refer to Queen as like opera rock or something like that? Um, where it's again very kind of I don't know if ballady is the right word, although
Hmm.
that's something that was always like that word always came to mind when listening to this album. Um, but yeah, so Goodbye Stranger, good song. Breakfast in America, another one that had a little bit of theatrical nature to it. I literally wrote, "Oh, darling, sneaky banger?" Question mark. Um, and it's right around that point where I'm thinking, like, all right, this album is very driven by the keys, which I'm beating a dead horse here. I sound like a broken record, but obviously not really like my prototypical album. Would be something driven by the keys. I like the piano a lot. I don't know if I was speaking about that on an episode on here recently. Definitely an instrument I found more appreciation for lately, and I think the piano sound, like, and Nigel touched on the recording techniques and how they used it. I thought the piano sound in this was really good. You hear it again and Take a Long Way Home. Um, but the one song I did want to call out was Just Another Nervous Wreck, which you guys kind of alluded to already. That would probably be a song that was on my radar, and it definitely was. So again, like right around this point in the album, I'm thinking the keys are starting to sound a bit samey, which I to call the album samey isn't fair, but for something so driven by that sound, I didn't think that there was like I've been listening to a lot of Steely Dan Pretzel Logic lately, and Signed in Stranger is a song that starts on the keys, and it's got just got that jangly sound. It's really melodic. There's some kind of solo, or I should say lead elements of the keys in that. And I love that sound with the keys. I didn't think that the keys were really, you know, melodically leading as much, or I should again, in terms of like a lead part with embellishments, like you might again that I could call out tons of guitarists who play like that. So I'm just saying that at this point, I'm thinking it's a little samey. The piano's just not doing it enough for me by song number 8. But I feel like Just Another Nervous Wreck was a more guitar-driven song on the album, and there was a bit of a different beat to it too. So I would say that was definitely like my kind of what's the word I'm looking for, underrated, I guess, song on
You
the
would
album.
find.
Yeah. Um, So, and I thought Gone Hollywood was another good song, uh, for one that was never on my radar before listening.
Kind of seems
Definitely,
like the songs that you prefer are like the lead vocals that are Davies versus Hodgson.
Hodgson.
Like the Hodgson
Yeah,
stuff is a little bit more theatrical. You can
definitely.
Yeah.
definitely hear that in like the Logical Song, Breakfast in America, Gone
yeah,
Hollywood.
this Davies guy seems like a cool dude. I didn't even
Yeah,
notice
seems
that.
like a total homie.
Yeah, I would have a beer with him for sure. Um, but honestly, I mean, that's most of what I have. I mean, again, I've listened to it a good couple times, which is different than maybe some of the first albums that we did, and it stood up. It wasn't like it wasn't like one of the. I mean, obviously, Nigel, you're gonna hate this, but the Talking Heads album, I'd listened to it once, and that was like a hard thing to get through. So,
Oh
and I didn't.
my God.
It's like, wow, I have to do this again. Uh, so I didn't feel the same way with this. And bonus, not that this really matters. It's not super applicable to vinyl, which is the media that would have come out on, but it loops really well too, because Child of Vision kind of
Mhm.
Yeah,
uh you know fades out, settles down a little bit, and then you kind of fade back into Gone Hollywood, which I think is really cool, and a bonus for the way we listen in this day and age where you can just loop it on Spotify. So um yeah, good album. I would say I'm not as bullish on it as you guys, but then again, a lot of the objective talking points hold up pretty strongly.
Cool.
for sure. And I agree with you. I think Child Division loops amazingly back into Gone Hollywood. They both have that rhythmic, just pumping the keys. It just fades out, and then Gone Hollywood just fades in, and I'm like, yes, let's go, let's do it again. And you were like, I don't know if I want to do this again, but still.
No, well, I didn't say that about this album.
Oh, okay, okay.
I said that about Talking Heads.
I mean, whatever.
All right.
Jackie, still, you got to run.
Let's hop on this real quick. It's an S, in my opinion. That's my vote.
Ooh, ooh,
Of course. Where though?
I don't
fantastic.
know. I don't
Of
know.
course.
I'm happy to go.
Nige.
Top of S again. We got another
Yeah.
top of S.
Above
Yeah, I'm there
Talking
with
Heads
you.
though, Nigel?
I think it's pretty close. It doesn't matter because Talking Heads isn't the top of S. So,
Right.
but
It's close. Okay.
it's top of S.
Just curious.
Real quick, I'm just thinking about it right now because this is an album that took 10 months to produce. Didn't we say Boston was basically in production for years? Um,
Yeah.
how long did 1984 take?
Just trying to defend himself.
I'm not trying to belittle the album.
I think it was a couple months,
Hanging on by his fingernails.
maybe like 3 or 4 months. I could look it up real quick.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, that is interesting. So you guys are on agreement, what, basically top of S?
Inky, what do you think?
I think so. I think gut reaction. I knew what the list kind of looked like, and I wanted to spite Seamus and put it above Van Halen and Boston, but now that we've kind of talked it through, I do think it's deservedly top of S.
Wow.
Nice.
So that's 3 top of S's.
Seamus.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't feel that bullish about it. I don't think I'm going to, block your guys' nomination, like fight so hard to do so. To be honest, I wrote in my notes like high B. And that's again, I mean, that's very much based on where it sits in terms of my tastes. Because to be honest with you, I don't know if I might have saved Gone Hollywood. I don't know if I saved any of these songs, which is a small metric. And I know that songs can mean more in the context of a full album, depending on what we're talking about. But again, per my taste, it's not like I didn't just add 5 of these to a classic rock playlist or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
You should.
I would probably say at least top of A, given our discussion on it. And I mean, honestly, per the production value, I think S is definitely fair. And I don't have a good counter argument to say not top of S. I mean, it's not where I would put it, but it's there. Let me put it this way: there are other albums that when we discussed knocking down Van Halen and Boston for those, I would go to my grave to block to veto those. I do not feel the same way about this.
What the fuck? 1984 did take 4 months to record, by the way. So just so you know. But yeah, it looks like top of S. I was surprised because I did not know this album coming into it. I think, like Seamus has said, I'd heard the Logical Song before and Long Way Home. And I think I've heard songs that sampled
Breakfast in America.
Breakfast in America. Take a look at My Girlfriend. But I did not know anything about this album. And when I played it through, I was like, wow. That I just listened to another one of the greatest rock albums of all time. And I was like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't even know about this.
That's why this is such a great thing we're doing. I've learned
Yeah.
so much about good music that I didn't know. I just sent this to the sample, Nigel.
All right, cool.
If you want to listen to it again.
It is interesting though, man. I mean, we talk about how this chart would look so much different if I kind of want to do this if we all made an individual chart of this format for all of these albums to see where we put everything.
Yeah.
Because it definitely, like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, Supertramp at the top of A is kind of crazy for me. But
you mean
again,
Talking Heads?
I'm sorry, top of S.
Oh, okay.
Talking Heads, the top of A, also crazy. But but again, I mean, I think that a lot of the commentaries, it validates these choices. It's just not where I would have put it, especially not on the initial listen. So
yeah,
cool.
I think it's definitely been fun. As something I don't know who just mentioned it, but like about listening to albums all the way through. I think maybe it was Jack. But yeah, like I never listened to albums all the way through before we started doing this, and now I almost exclusively listen to albums all the way through, and I gotta say I enjoy it a lot more.
Me too.
And Spotify recognized that too, because I don't know which slide it was, but for the Wrapped, it was like, you listen to albums almost exclusively all the way through, and I was like, yeah, I do.
Really? That's
I'm
cool.
I'm fucking
really
cool like that.
You are the man.
But, yeah.
It sounds like I might have suggested this one. I don't know if I did. I might have did. I do love this album, but I do have another suggestion at some point. I put it in the group chat, but John Barleycorn Must Die by Traffic. It's like a 30-minute album, and it is fantastic. I'm not super familiar with it, but I listened to it on my flight here, and it was like really, really good. So for looking for albums, I'll throw that in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, sounds good. We'll talk about it in the chat.
Traffic's awesome.
Are we just discounting Dan's vote? I mean, I can't imagine he's going to put it very low. I mean, maybe if he puts it C, it would move, but
it seems like a Dan album.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's a very Love Yours take.
Yeah,
I think if he comes into the next episode and feels strongly differently about it, then we can open his position up for discussion again too. But I just don't see that happening. I thought that he nominated this. I really hope that isn't the case.
I thought it was Jack, and I don't think it was like, oh, let's do this. I think I don't know. So people were talking. He was just like, oh, we could
I'm
do
going
this,
in the chat.
and then
Yeah, I know we had a couple different things that we had talked about too, and there was another one that Dan had mentioned. So maybe this one wasn't his nomination, but I don't see any reason not to do traffic. But
if you
do
want to
we
do
want to do
Portishead,
Nigel's? Do we want to do Nigel's idea of a Spotify Wrapped discussion? I think that'd be interesting.
yeah, I think it might be another longer episode. So I'm not totally sure, but yeah, it sounds like a
So
good
so
idea.
A, I like the idea, and B, I mean, if you want to talk about algorithms, I'm sure Spotify Wrapped is conversation that's trending right
Um,
now.
I'm sorry, Dan did suggest this.
Oh,
Look
you
at the
did?
No,
chat.
He
Yeah,
did. Damn.
yeah.
no. Honestly, I've thought about before is I mean, especially in a case like this where Dan fucking nominated the album and we did it without him. Like, I don't know
Well,
if he would
he was
want to do
supposed to be
this.
here.
I know, but I don't our communication is not great. I don't really think that Dan ever said, yeah. I mean, he may have said, yeah, 9 a.m. works on Sunday, like on Friday, but then Inky said, like, so I don't know if it's gonna work. Jack was,
I
talking
didn't
about,
respond till
well,
11 last night.
that's what I'm saying. So it's like I almost said let's not do it for Dan today just because
Yeah,
when we're communicating about this stuff, I just listen. I have my notifications muted for pretty much every single app on my phone except for text, basically anything communication
same.
related. Um, so I don't know if you guys have this muted, but at least when we're coming up on the weekend, when we're to like nail down a date, that's why I add people because if you have it muted, you still get that notification when you get added. And I just wish that within an hour or two on a day before we're supposed to record, we could all just have a powwow real quick and be like, "Yep, good for it. Yep, good for it. Yep." You know what I mean? That way, there's no confusion where Dan sleeps through it because he thought, well, we weren't doing it. I mean, he could have spoke up too. He could have turned his notifications on too. But I'm just saying.
Yeah,
No, I mean
sure.
it's fair. It's
Life is,
fair.
I mean, it's just like holidays and like everything's super busy right now.
I know.
We've
Yeah, no.
definitely had a lot more trouble getting things together the past couple of weeks. I feel like we were better at it earlier, but I think in the new year it might be better. I just think everyone's super busy traveling right now.
Yeah,
No,
we
I
could
get that.
also do a Christmas album. I don't know.
No,
A certain NFL team
Ass.
recorded an NFL offensive line.
Uh,
that'd be
I
fun.
haven't listened to that album yet. So,
Me neither.
um, well, I'll listen
Apparently,
to it, but in case we do want to do it.
Jordan Davis apparently has an amazing voice, which is hilarious because he's like 6'7", 300 pounds.
That internal reverb, all that
Yeah,
body.
I honestly think
yeah,
that probably helps. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Powerful voice. But you want to plan on Sunday? Is the next time we record?
this probably works
I
for
could
me.
maybe. I know I have plans in the evening. It would have to be a morning. Um, so potentially, but I gotta go. So we
All
can really
right,
talk about it.
have fun at the Eagles game.
Yeah, go Birds.
Go
Go
Bears.
Birds.